Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Gardener. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's September 24th. One of my favorite shoulder season plants is my Magnolia. The beautiful white blossoms in the spring and the glorious yellow leaves in the fall bookend a summer of hardy greenery. Then all winter long, the dormant flower buds will pop out, adding interest and promise during those final snowstorms in late March and April. If you're looking for a plant that provides something new in every season, add Magnolia to your list. Here's today's brevities. Today is the birthday of the botanist Wilhelm Herbst, who was born on this day in 1833. As a child, William would accompany his father on horseback as he visited patients across Bucks County in Pennsylvania. While his dad met with the sick in their homes, William stayed outside and passed the time collecting flora and fauna for study. When Herbst grew older, he spent time formally studying botany in addition to attending medical school in Philadelphia. Although he became a doctor like his father, Frederick, William Herbst was truly a botanist at heart. He developed a passion for fungi, and he wrote a fungal flora of the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania in 1899. Once, after sending a specimen to his botanist friend, Professor C.H. Peck, Herbst received an acknowledgement letter, which read in part, "That was a splendid fungus you sent me. It's an undescribed species of Spiraceus, and I propose to name it, with your consent, Spiraceus herbstii." In 1906, doctors were still making house calls. Herbst died after visiting a sick patient. His obituary in the Morning Call in Allentown, Pennsylvania, read, "Herbst suffered from a fall. Leaving a sick room to go to the bathroom, he opened a stairway door by accident and plunged to the bottom in the darkness. Then he sank into a coma from which he did not awake. The doctor was one of the most lovable of men. He was firm and honest in his convictions, and his beautiful nature was exemplified in the poem Welcome Spring Flowers, which he wrote many years ago. Many a time he was asked why he did not settle in some city where his botanical talents would receive prompt recognition. But his answer invariably was that he could study nature better in his old home. When Herbst died, his widow donated his collection of 5,000 fungi to the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. And it was on this day in 1886 that the botanist Wilhelm Nikolaus Suksdorf began his journey by train to Cambridge, Massachusetts, to go to work for Harvard's top botanist, Asa Gray. Now, I know what you're thinking. This must be another story about a botanist who gets to Harvard and then writes his ticket to success and fame. But that is not the story of Wilhelm Suksdorf. Suksdorf was born in Germany, but his family soon immigrated to Iowa. The Suksdorfs had 9 children, but after their 2 little girls died, the Suksdorfs were a family of 7 boys, and they were often referred to as the 7 Suksdorfs. Wilhelm was number 6. When his older brothers went to Ames, Iowa for college, botany was part of the curriculum. Imagine that. It was through his older brothers that Wilhelm learned of Asa Gray's botany manual. After he heard about it, he wanted one for himself. So, when he was 20 years old, he bought himself a copy and he used it to learn about the plants on the family's Davenport, Iowa farm. After his brothers went west to find their fortunes, it wasn't long before the entire Suksdorf family followed suit. Asa Gray's manual was not helpful with the flora in the Northwest. Botanically speaking, Suksdorf was in uncharted territory. The lack of information spurred him to reach out to none other than Asa Gray, and Gray wrote him back. Corresponding with Gray gave Suksdorf something to do outside of the farm, yet it allowed him to stay at home where he preferred to be. Suksdorf would collect specimens and then send the ones he wasn't sure of to Gray, and then wait for a response as to the identification. In the beginning, Suksdorf may not have appreciated how this relationship was actually a true quid pro quo. See, Suksdorf's work was an answer to prayer for Gray, who was working on a flora of North America. In recognition for his work, Gray named a violet for Suksdorf. This was an immense honor, one Suksdorf did not expect, and it turned Suksdorf into a true Gray disciple. Things carried on this way for the next 7 years until 1885, which proved to be a dreadful year. At this point, Suksdorf was a 35-year-old bachelor living at home with his parents, working on the farm with his brothers, and botanizing whenever he had the inclination, time, and energy. But in October of that year, both his parents succumbed to sickness. It was something like the flu, but they didn't bounce back. They grew sicker and sicker until on October 22nd, they both died. Suksdorf moved in with his younger brother Theodore and his wife. We don't know for sure how that went, but we do know that Suksdorf's sister-in-law attempted to get him out of his shell, out of his grief, and into the real world. By spring, she had written a letter to Dr. Gray at Harvard. One can almost see her rifling through Wilhelm's correspondence to find Dr. Gray's address. Asa Gray must have been moved by something, whether it was all those specimens and letters or the desperate plea from the sister-in-law. We don't know for sure. But what we do know is that in a little over 2 weeks, Gray had put together an offer for Suksdorf. Come to Harvard, be my assistant, earn $500 the first year, $600 the second, and so on, up to $1,000 per year. And Gray offered a career path as well as mentorship. What was not to love? True to form, Suksdorf went and declined the offer, saying something about not wanting a life indoors doing office work. You can imagine the reaction of his family. Their disappointment and frustration was made clear. In turn, Suksdorf handled it the only way he knew how, escaping to nature for 3 weeks. If nothing else, the hiatus gave Wilhelm time to think. Incredibly, when Suksdorf returned home, Gray had written again and asked him to reconsider. And so it was on this day in 1886 that Suksdorf found himself boarding a train headed for Massachusetts to work with his mentor, Asa Gray. For a little over a year, Suksdorf enjoyed working directly with Gray, but it was short-lived. 4 days after Thanksgiving in 1887, Gray was at home and coming down the stairs for breakfast when he suddenly lost control of his arm and hand. 3 days later, he lost control over his speech. He languished in bed in complete silence for 2 months. and he died at the end of January on the 30th in 1888. Suksdorf had lost his mentor, and grief consumed him to the point that Gray's wife, Jane, had to send him to an institution in order to recover. When he was discharged, Suksdorf discovered that Gray's position had been filled by a man named Cyrano Watson, and Suksdorf could see the writing on the wall. He wasn't a fit. For a homebody like Suksdorf, the easy decision was to go back home. Toward the end of his botanical career, Suksdorf was a special fellow at the Herbarium of Washington State University. He collected 150,000 specimens, including 70 new species, over the course of his lifetime. Many plants have been named in his honor, and today there is a Suksdorfia chapter of the Washington Native Plant Society, and it's made up of a great group of native plant enthusiasts in the gorge. Suksdorf died as the result of a train accident. On October 3rd, 1932, he stepped onto the track to flag the train, but it didn't stop, and Suksdorf was thrown against the wall of the depot. He was 82 years old. In Unearthed Words, here are some words about autumn from Samuel Butler. Youth is like spring, an overpraised season, more remarkable for biting winds than genial breezes. Autumn is the mellower season, and what we lose in flowers, we more than gain in fruits. Today's book recommendation is Not Just Desserts by Susan Belsinger. This sweet little cookbook came out in 2010. You can still get used copies on Amazon using the link in today's show notes. It looks like there's about 13 used copies available for under $10. Otherwise, the book is out of print, and collectible copies start at close to $60. So if you want a copy of this one, don't wait. Belsinger is a prolific food writer. She's written close to 20 cookbooks, and she's also an amazing herb expert. Belsinger has created these sweet herbal recipes that are simple and homey, and all of them are made delicious because of the addition of herbs. Today's garden chore is to strategically tidy up the garden. As harvest time comes to an end, it's good to go ahead and cut down edibles and vegetable plants. I chop and drop many of my edibles to return the nutritious green matter back into the soil, and leave the roots of healthy plants to improve the soil. Plants like herbs, peppers, cucumber, beans, and so on. Basically, any plants that aren't diseased. Finally, consider adding a cover crop to your beds that could use a little boost. It's simple, and it offers a beautiful, protective, nutritious blanket over your garden. Finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. On this day in 1967, the song Apples, Peaches, Pumpkin Pie by Jay and the Techniques reached number 8 on the top 40 music charts. The lyrics are a throwback to a childhood expression: apples, peaches, pumpkin pie, who's not ready, holler I. When the song was pitched to the group in May of 1966, the band's drummer hung up on the suggestion. He wasn't too excited about singing about fruit and pumpkin pie. But after they recorded the song, an Atlantic City radio station featured it in a contest, and the song took off. By the fall of 1967, the band was performing the song on The Ed Sullivan Show. If you're looking for something catchy and sweet for your fall playlist in the garden, consider adding apples, peaches, pumpkin pie. But I'm going to warn you, if you haven't heard it before, it's a total earworm. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced weekdays in lovely Maple Grove, Minnesota. You can find complete show notes over at thedailygardener.org, and be sure to share the show with your garden friends. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media: Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest, and of course, Facebook. While you're over at Facebook, don't forget to join the Daily Gardener community. Just search for these 3 words, Daily Gardener Community. The group will pop right up, and then request to join. Finally, I want to thank my team at Podfly Productions, where my fabulous editor is Eric Begay. Have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow. Apple, peaches, pumpkin pie.